Hi everybody, how are you all? Hope you're doing great. So, welcome back to another session of learning English with me. Today, I have a reading and listening practice session for you. An English reading and practice session to improve your fluency, your listening skills, and your pronunciation. So, you must remember I made a previous lesson with this book, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, and you people requested me to please continue the series. So, here I am with another lesson on this particular novel where I'm gonna read it from the point where I left it in the previous chapter, the previous lesson. So if you really want to know where we are, what is going on in the story, I suggest that you also watch the lesson number 1 in this particular series. Okay, let's begin with today's series. Before beginning, I tell you what we are going to do. The exact agenda for today is to read. You'll have the text on my left hand side. Now this is going to be your right hand side. So you'll have the text here on this side. You can read along with me, you can read aloud, or you can simply listen to me while reading it silently. I suggest listen to me while reading it silently. That's gonna be great practice for you because you'll be able to know the pronunciation of lots and lots of words that you're listening to. Plus, I will cover some vocabulary on the go. That is, as I'm reading, I'll also explain bits, part of speech, vocabulary and everything along with the reading. So are you ready for this? I'm Shivangi Gupta, your English language tutor, certified by the University of Cambridge, the UK, and you're watching Speak English with Shivangi. Before beginning, please subscribe the channel so that you don't miss out on any lesson. You get one video lesson each day on this channel. Like the video and share it as much as possible. Share it with your friends too. Okay, now coming back to the lesson, let me just tell you a small gist of whatever we have done till now. So till now we have started this particular novel and the main character has been introduced. The boy named Santiago. Now, what is the story? To know the exact story, you have to go back to the previous chapter. And in the previous chapter, the lesson that we were doing, the boy was talking about his jacket, how the nights are cold and the days they are so much warm. And I'm gonna continue that particular chapter. So listen carefully now. The jacket had a purpose, and so did the boy. His purpose in life was to travel, and after 2 years of walking the Andalusian terrain, he knew all the cities of the region. He was planning on this visit to explain to girl how it was that a simple shepherd knew how to read, that he had attended a seminary until he was 16. His parents had wanted him to become a priest, and thereby a source of pride for a simple farm family. They worked hard just to have food and water, like the sheep. He had studied Latin, Spanish, and theology. But ever since he had been a child, he had wanted to know the word. And this was much more important to him than knowing God and learning about man's sins. One afternoon, on a visit to his family, he had summoned up the courage to tell his father that he didn't want to become a priest, that he wanted to travel. People from all over the world have passed through this village, son, said his father. They come in search of new things, but when they leave, they are basically the same people they were when they arrived. They climb the mountain to see the castle, and they wind up thinking that the past was better than what we have now. They have blonde hair or dark skin, but basically they're the same as the people who live right here. But I'd like to see the castles in the towns where they live, the boy explained. Those people, when they see our land, say that they would like to live here forever, his father continued. Well, I'd like to see their land and see how they live, said his son. The people who come here have a lot of money to spend, so they can afford to travel, his father said. Amongst us, the only ones who travel are the shepherds. Well, then I'll be a shepherd. His father said no more. The next day, he gave his son a pouch that held 3 ancient Spanish gold coins. I found these one day in the fields. I wanted them to be a part of your inheritance, but use them to buy your flock. Okay, so I'll take a pause here and I'll explain some of the things. So one thing is that you must know that this boy is a shepherd, and there was a girl who wanted to know why he was a shepherd. So basically in this particular chapter, he's explaining why actually he became a shepherd even though he's educated. Still he's a shepherd, and why, and how can a shepherd, being a shepherd, he's able to read. So he's explaining his education, his family background, and he's telling that he wanted to visit the world, he wanted to travel, he wanted to visit towns and cities, different towns, different cities, and he wanted to explore the world. That's why he decided to become a shepherd. Now, there is one thing, as you can see, listen carefully. They climb the mountain to see the castle, and they wind up. So here you will not say wind. This is not wind. This is wind up. Wind up is basically a phrasal verb which means ended up, or it's like you're trying to say ended up. So they wind up. They ended up thinking that the past was better than what we have now. So wind, the pronunciation is wind, not wind, wind. It's eind, wind, wind. Okay, so wind up, a phrasal verb there. Next one is amongst. So amongst is basically another version of saying among. Among, it's like you're choosing between a group of people. Okay, when you have to choose among, you're referring to. So amongst is basically an old word, old version of among. So it's like among. Third word from here would be inheritance. So inheritance is something that you get from your ancestors or your parents as a part of, it can be money, it can be property. The inheritance is what your parents pass on to you in the form of money, property, anything for you to have. The financial help or financial, basically financial belongings that you are entitled to. So here that inheritance is basically the 3 gold coins, Spanish gold coins. And you must hear this word Spain a lot because this particular novel is set in Spain. Let's move forward. I found these one day in the fields. I wanted them to be a part of your inheritance, but use them to buy your flock. Flock is basically the flock of sheep, the group of sheep. Take to the fields, and someday you'll learn that our countryside is the best and our women the most beautiful. And he gave the boy his blessing. The boy could see in his father's gaze a desire to be able himself to travel the world, a desire that was still alive. Despite his father's having had to bury it over dozens of years, under the burden of struggling for water to drink, food to eat, and the same place to sleep every night of his life. So basically, he belonged to a family where getting water to drink and food to eat was a very big deal. And that was the struggle for his father for the whole life. The horizon was tinged with red, and suddenly the sun appeared. Tinged. Tinged means colored. So tinge is basically a shade. To say that something has a particular shade, a color's shade, we say tinged. The horizon was tinged with red, and suddenly the sun appeared. The boy thought back to that conversation with his father and felt happy. He had already seen many castles and met many women, but none the equal of the one who awaited him several days hence. He owned a jacket, a book that he could trade for another, and a flock of sheep. But most important, he was able every day to live out his dream. If he were to tire of the Andalusian fields, he could sell his sheep and go to sea. By the time he had had enough of the sea, he would already have known other cities, other women, and other chances to be happy. I couldn't have found God in the seminary, he thought as he looked at the sunrise. Whenever he could, he sought out a new road to travel. He had never been to that ruined church before, in spite of having traveled through those paths many times. The word was huge and inexhaustible. He had only to allow his sheep to set the route for a while, and he would discover other interesting things. The problem is that they don't even realize that they're walking a new road every day. They don't see that the fields are new and the seasons change. All they think about is food and water. Maybe we're all that way, the boy mused. Mused, that means to think about something. Think. Even me, I haven't thought of other women since I met the merchant's daughter. Looking at the sun, he calculated that he would reach Tarifa before midday. There he could exchange his book for a thicker one, fill his wine bottle, shave, and have a haircut. He had to prepare himself for his meeting with the girl. And he didn't want to think about the possibility that some other shepherd with a larger flock of sheep had arrived there before him and asked for her hand. It's the possibility of having a dream come true that makes life interesting, he thought, as he looked again at the position of the sun and hurried his pace. Pace. So pace is basically the speed at which he was walking. So the pace of travel. So he hurried up his pace is like he started traveling faster. So he wanted to cover the distance fast. He had suddenly remembered that in Tarifa there was an old woman who interpreted dreams. The old woman led the boy to a room at the back of her house. It was separated from her living room by a curtain of colored beads. The room's furnishing consisted of a table, an image of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and 2 chairs. The woman sat down and told him to be seated as well. Then she took both of his hands in hers and began quietly to pray. It sounded like a gypsy prayer. The boy had already had experience on the road with gypsies. They also traveled, but they had no flocks of sheep. People said that gypsies spent their lives tricking others. It was also said that they had a pact with the devil and they kidnapped children and taking them away to their mysterious camps made them their slaves. As a child, the boy had always been frightened to death that he would be captured by gypsies. And this childhood fear returned when the old woman took his hands in hers. Okay, so gypsy. Basically, gypsies are the people who travel a lot. They have like caravans and they travel in groups. They do not stay at one place ever. They only stay at a place for a temporary period of time and they live their livelihood by showing some magic tricks or maybe some kind of performance for the local people that are living in that particular area. So they are constantly on travel. Like you know that boho culture, bohemian culture has been actually inspired from this gypsy, the lifestyle of gypsies. So this boy, he was actually quite scared of gypsies because there were rumors that they used to kidnap children. But she has the Sacred Heart of Jesus there. He thought, trying to reassure himself, he didn't want his hand to begin trembling, showing the old woman that he was fearful. He recited an Our Father silently. Very interesting, said the woman, never taking her eyes from the boy's hands. And then she fell silent. The boy was becoming nervous. His hand began to tremble, and the woman sensed it. He quickly pulled his hands away. So tremble. So tremble is the movement of hand when you're nervous. So when you're nervous, you see that your hands, they start shaking. That's trembling. That particular thing is called trembling. So the boy's hands, they started tremble because he was too much scared and nervous. And the old woman, she sensed it. I didn't come here to have you read my palm, he said, already regretting having come. He thought for a moment that it would be better to pay her fee and leave without learning a thing. That he was giving too much importance to his recurrent dream. Recurrent is something that is occurring again and again. So recurrent dream means that the same dream that he's having at night again and again, the dream that comes at night when he's sleeping again and again, the same dream. You come so that you could learn about your dreams, said the old woman, and dreams are the language of God. When he speaks in our language, I can interpret what he has said. But if he speaks in the language of the soul, it is only you who can understand. But whichever it is, I'm going to charge you for the consultation. Another trick, the boy thought. But he decided to take a chance. The shepherd always takes his chances with wolves and with drought. And that's what makes a shepherd's life exciting. I have had the same dream twice, he said. I dreamed that I was in a field with my sheep when a child appeared and began to play with the animals. I don't like people to do that because the sheep are afraid of strangers. But children always seem to be able to play with them without frightening them. That is scaring them away. Fright. That means to be scared. Fright. I don't know why. I don't know how animals know the age of human beings. Tell me more about your dream, said the woman. I have to get back to my cooking, and since you don't have much money, I can't give you a lot of time. Okay, so that is the end of today's lesson, today's reading session. I know I am leaving you at a cliffhanger, and this is a great novel. If you really want to know what happened with the boy, his dreams, his passion of traveling, what happened with the boy, what is the exact story, please go and read this novel, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. A very motivating and inspiring novel. So you must read this. Okay, this is the end of today's session. We did reading practice, listening practice, and looked at some of the language, that is vocab, some phrasal verbs, and some kind of difficult words that were there in the lesson, in this particular passage that I read for you. So that's it for today. I hope you liked the lesson and it was helpful for you. Now I'm gonna meet you tomorrow with a new lesson. Till then, everybody take care, keep reading, and bye.